If you've spent any time on social media or in a parenting group lately, you have definitely heard the term gentle parenting. I mean, it is everywhere. For some, it's the absolute key to raising happy, resilient kids. But for others, it's a fast track to chaos and total burnout. So what's the real story here? Let's get into it.
And boy, is the debate intense. It's so easy to get lost in all the noise. So that's what we're going to do in this explainer. We're going to break it all down. We'll look at the core ideas, the science behind it, and the very real struggles parents and teachers are facing. The big question we're asking is this: is gentle parenting the gold standard, or is it a recipe for disaster?
Okay, so first things first. Let's really unpack the promise of gentle parenting. What is it, actually? And why has this whole philosophy completely captured the hearts and minds of so many parents who are just looking for a better way?
At its core, gentle parenting is really about shifting away from a power struggle and towards a partnership with your child. The goal isn't to control them, it's to connect with them, to really try and understand their little world and where they're at developmentally. It's all about guiding their behavior with purpose, instead of just reacting out of your own frustration.
This whole approach really rests on four big ideas. First up is emotional validation, this idea that every feeling is valid even if every behavior isn't. Then there's positive discipline, which is about teaching and nurturing, not punishing. Third is respectful communication, treating kids like people. And finally, and this is a big one, it's about putting that parent-child connection above everything else, choosing that relationship over just blind obedience.
Now, it's super important to be clear about what gentle parenting is not. People often confuse it with being permissive, but its supporters actually line it up with the authoritative style. That's where you have lots of warmth and connection, but also really clear, firm boundaries. And that is a completely different world from the authoritarian style, which is all about high demands, not much warmth, and just wanting kids to do what they're told, no questions asked.
And listen, this isn't just some feel-good theory. There is actual data to back this up. For instance, a recent 2024 study found a direct connection between parents respecting their child's opinions and better mental health for those kids down the road. They showed higher self-esteem and were less likely to struggle with depression. This really drives home how powerful that respect pillar we just talked about can be.
Okay, but that's just one side of the story, right? Because despite the beautiful theory and all the research, there's a growing wave of parents, teachers, and therapists who are sounding the alarm about how this all plays out in the real world.
And the first big critique comes directly from parents. I think this quote from Parents Canada just nails it. The pressure to constantly be the calm, regulated adult in every situation is immense. That nonstop demand to be emotionally available can be completely exhausting, and it's leading a lot of parents straight to burnout. They feel like they're failing if they can't stay perfectly serene through every single meltdown.
And these worries are spilling over from homes into schools. Teachers are reporting that some kids who are used to negotiating everything are really struggling with basic instructions in the classroom. It's becoming harder to manage a room when every single no turns into a full-blown debate, and some kids just don't seem to grasp the idea of consequences. From a clinical standpoint, psychologists are also pointing out some potential traps if this approach isn't really balanced. Without those clear, consistent boundaries, kids can have a hard time developing their own self-control. There's a real risk of getting so caught up in validating emotions that you forget to set expectations for behavior, which, ironically, can end up reinforcing the exact thing you're trying to change.
And for some families, the standard gentle parenting advice just doesn't apply. Writer Amanda Dykman, who has neurodivergent kids, wrote this powerful piece about how the usual strategies, like naming feelings for her kids, actually made things so much worse. Her story really shines a light on a huge gap in this conversation.
And this gets at a much bigger criticism, that any one-size-fits-all parenting model can actually be kind of ableist. Think about it. A behavior like jumping or constant fidgeting might look like misbehavior that needs to be calmed. But for a neurodivergent child, that could be a vital way they regulate their sensory system. The whole approach can fall apart when it doesn't recognize that different brains just have different needs.
All right, so we've got a philosophy with research-backed benefits on one side and some pretty serious real-world drawbacks on the other. Where does that leave parents? Is there some way to find a balance in all of this?
Well, this is where we circle back to that term we mentioned earlier, authoritative parenting. For decades, this has been considered the gold standard by psychologists, and for a really good reason. It's the style that perfectly blends two critical ingredients, a ton of emotional warmth and support on one side, with clear, consistent boundaries and expectations on the other. This chart does a fantastic job of showing them side by side. You can see they have a lot in common. Both are high in warmth, both focus on that connection. But look where they split. When it comes to discipline and boundaries, gentle parenting can be super flexible,
often avoiding consequences. Authoritative parenting, on the other hand, is more structured. It absolutely uses consequences, but they're fair, they're logical, and they're always delivered with empathy.
So maybe the big takeaway here isn't about picking a team. It's not gentle versus authoritative. Maybe the most effective, most sane approach is a blend, taking that deep empathy and respect from gentle parenting and pairing it with the clear structure and consistent boundaries of authoritative parenting. It's about combining the best of both worlds.
So what does that blend actually look like in a real chaotic moment? Well, here's a simple framework. Step 1, you empathize. You validate the feeling. I get it, you're really mad that screen time is over. Step 2, you hold the boundary, firmly but always kindly. The rule is 1 hour, and it's time to turn it off now. And then step 3, you guide with a clear and logical consequence if you need to. If turning it off is a big struggle today, then we might need to take a break from screens tomorrow. You see, you're being responsive and you're being structured.
Look, at the end of the day, this isn't about perfectly following some label you found on Instagram. It's about building a relationship with your kid that's strong, loving, and respectful, but one that also prepares them for the realities of the world. So the real question isn't which parenting camp you belong to, but what does that unique mix of respect and effectiveness look like for your family?